Hey Insurance, it's Amy Waninger here, again filling in for Tony Conyas, who's on vacation. And I want to talk today to the agents because here's what I think about insurance. You guys have probably heard me say this before, but I want to talk specifically to agents and why your agency needs to be intentionally inclusive. Here's the deal. You guys know my two things about insurance, right? Number one, insurance makes all economic investment possible. And number two, we help people on their worst day. And I think that for those reasons, insurance is truly one of the most critical components of our economy. There is nothing we don't touch, and there's no one we can't help. Insurance agents are on the front lines of our industry. Agents work to protect the people in their communities, and they help determine whether families and businesses have enough coverage. They often serve as the translators for policy jargon into layman's terms. And they're typically first responders when there's a claim or when there's a disaster or a catastrophe. And so for all these reasons, I think it's important that insurance agents make an effort to be consciously inclusive of the people in their communities. Now, there are lots of different ways to be inclusive, and I'm not going to talk about all of those today. What I want to talk specifically about is why is this important? Reason number one, the US population is changing. So the birth rate is in decline in the United States, particularly among white people who are the majority population right now. And what that means is that there are going to be a higher percentage of Black and Hispanic and Asian folks in our country than there will be white folks. And that's going to happen within the next couple of years. In fact, Hispanics of all races represent the fastest growing ethnicity in the United States. Now, if you think about who your agency currently serves and who comprises your agency today, it's probably a lot of white people, right? Because we know that fewer than 5% of principals are non-white, and around a third of principals are women. So keep those numbers in mind. Home ownership trends are also changing and kind of going along with these same population trends. So homeowners and renters are becoming less white, more Hispanic, and when you consider that 90% of new car buyers are also homeowners, you can see that the cross-marketing potential of Black and Hispanic or Latino policyholders, consumers, is getting increasingly a percent of the market share. Business ownership trends are following those same numbers as well. So a growing number of small businesses can be attributed to minority and women owners. And my own business, Lead at Any Level, is a certified women's business enterprise. Now, when I went to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, to find out what do I need to do to legally establish my company as a limited liability corporation, an LLC, they have a step-by-step guide on what you need to do, right? You need to incorporate in your state, you need to file for an employer identification number, and you need to get insurance. And they specifically say, talk to an agent to get the right coverage. Well, most of us, when we are new business owners, are going to start with the agent that sold us our homeowners or our auto policies. So if a greater percentage of business owners, new business owners, are women and racial and ethnic minorities, and a larger percentage of homeowners are racial and ethnic minorities, and a large percent of new car buyers are racial and ethnic minorities, we need to think very carefully about what do our agencies look like, and how do we make sure that our agencies can serve the needs of our communities, our changing communities, especially if they don't already reflect the communities that we serve. Another big push in the small business space is the ownership of LGBT business enterprises. And LGBT business enterprises are those that are owned by people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. Now, we don't have accurate numbers on how many businesses that is in the country, and there are still a lot of reasons for business owners not to be visible if they are members of the LGBT community. but the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the NGLCC, has already certified about 1,100 businesses in this space, and Lead at Any Level is one of those, which I'm very proud to be on the front of this movement toward more certifications that are LGBT owned. But let's think about what that means. If I go into an agency and I don't feel as a woman that I am welcome, or I don't feel as a person in the LGBT community that I am welcome in that agency, there is a really good chance I'm going to take my business elsewhere. Now, I talked a little bit about this, but insurance agents, principals especially, are disproportionately white, non-Hispanic, and male. So more than 80% of agents, all licensed producers, are white, compared with just 73.5% of the population in general. And while those numbers aren't too bad of a mismatch right now, think about, if we project the population forecast out 5, 10, 20 years, that changes significantly. Based on my own research, and you can read about this in my book, Network Beyond Bias, Making Diversity a Competitive Advantage for Your Career. Based on my own research, most of us tend to do business with people who are already in our networks. Most of our networks tend to look very much like ourselves. And this means that minority populations are likely underserved by the insurance industry. And what it means is, if they're underserved by the industry, they are likely underinsured. So not only are we leaving dollars on the table in terms of premium collected and in terms of, coverage, available coverage that we could be covering, we're also creating exposure problems on the back end for claims. Because if people are underinsured, now let's say there's a third party claimant, they're going to have a harder time getting, being indemnified for their claims. But also the people in our own communities are going to be struggling financially. And that affects our whole economy. It affects the community economy, and it affects the relationships within our communities. So if small business owners can't thrive because they don't have enough coverage, that's a problem for our entire community, not just our industry. And then one other thing, I mentioned this earlier, but women are half the population, and we are less than around a third of the principals in agencies. Here's the thing though, women influence between 70 and 80% of all buying decisions. That's according to Forbes. So you can see pretty quickly how, if I as a woman walk into your agency, even if I'm with my husband, and I don't feel comfortable there, or I don't feel respected there, I'm going to take my business somewhere else. And the same is true of people from other underrepresented groups. So I want to challenge you today to think about, what is it you can do if you're an agent, or even if you're inside sales for a carrier, what is it you could do to address this discrepancy between who is on the front lines of insurance and who maybe needs insurance the most right now. That's my time today. Again, my name is Amy Waninger from Lead at Any Level. You can follow me. If you're on LinkedIn, I'm tagged right up there. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the Insurance Nerds video blog right down here. Have a great day.